We are storytellers by nature, sharing with others what we experience, perceive, and believe of life, our joys, adventures, our losses. We tell ourselves stories as well. Some leave us trapped by false beliefs and self-doubt. But there are also stories of persisting, exploring, and rising above. Stories of uncovering the truth, enabling powerful transformation and triumph. These are those stories. These are your stories. Okay, so let's see if we can do this right the first time, or maybe the second time. Hello, folks. Welcome to And So It Is, Stories of Truth, Transformation, and Triumph. My name is Zoe DeMuro. My pronouns are he and him. As a spiritual counselor, a religious science practitioner with the New Thought Media Network, and as a transformational coach, my ministry, my mission are to help people co-create the most authentic and most fulfilling life experience. As always, I am honored to bring this show to you the first Saturday of each month, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Pacific. If this is your first time, great to have you here. And if you're returning, oh, by all means, welcome back. So each episode of this show will allow you to hear how people like you, people like me, who have been held back by false and limiting beliefs, were able to uncover their truth and enable them to transform their life experience and then literally to triumph. Not in spite of, but because of their journey. There's a daily affirmation I just received, and it felt especially suited for today's show. And it was, I live as an artist of presence, shaping each moment with my awareness. I felt that was so well suited because today's guest is an exceptional singer-songwriter, Lynn Floyd. I've enjoyed Gary's songs over the years and met him about, I think it was about 2 years ago when I was producing a show on the New Thought Media Network for Reverend Mitch Austin. I was delighted when Gary agreed to be a guest on today's show. And quite honestly, I could just geek out for the entire hour talking about Gary's 14 albums, his awards. But suffice it to say that Gary is not only a consummate performer, but I want you to see for yourself why his bio states, quote, embodies the spirit of connection, joy, and spiritual exploration, unquote. Folks, I give you Lynn Floyd.
Good morning, Joe. I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Lynn Floyd out of Texas.
Houston, Texas.
All right. So, Gary, tell me, where are we going to start today? Where and when in your life?
I think that it's probably best to start at the beginning. I was born in Houston, Texas, to a Southern Baptist family. I was the youngest of 4 kids. So I have the traditional story of being the baby and all that comes with that. If any of you out there are the baby of your family, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I think that's the best place to start because I was ingrained in a spirituality and kind of an indoctrination of all that goes along with that evangelical Christian upbringing. Of everything being external, being born onto a planet and a God that's looking down and has kind of created you as a sinner to begin with. So you got a lot of catching up to do from the very beginning. So I think that's a good place to start for me because that's the very first thing that I had to overcome eventually, but I was, I came here with the gift of music. I came here picking out melodies when I was 4 years old. My older sister Carol would practice her piano for hours and hours, and then I would sit down. I don't really remember this, but the story goes I'd sit down and just pick out the melody that she'd
Mhm.
been working so diligently on, and she'd go to my mom, "Gary's bullying me." I was just expressing what I came here to express. So I kind of came here with that and a curiosity of all things spiritual too. Somehow, for some reason, I know people are brought up the way that I was brought up and aren't as ingrained and as in tune with it. But I came here with that as well.
Hmm. So I never want to denigrate anyone's religious beliefs. However, I will say that based on what you've just described, I would think that there were some very interesting ideas that were a part of your early life. Um, Tell me about how that affected you, and did you believe them? Did you feel that this was you?
I believed it wholeheartedly. Just to give you an idea of the family that I grew up in, I had an uncle. My dad's sister's husband was president of the Southern Baptist Convention when I was
Okay.
in high school, when I was in college, actually. Um, so there was that part of my family. And then on my mom's side of the family, her mother was Assembly of God. And so
Mm.
I did get a lot of different, a variety of approaches to Christianity and to God. Um, and I was wholeheartedly in. I mean, I remember growing up, my mom had a song for everything. So we were singing about, everything from buckle up for safety, buckle up when you get in the car, to my best friend is Jesus. And so I grew up with music and
Mhm.
spirituality kind of um, meshed together in my soul and my spirit,
Mhm.
and and I was all in. And as it evolved as a kid, you just kind of believe whatever you're told and I believed the best things about Jesus and what I learned from him as a child. And as I grew up, um, I think I was way more connected, I think, with the person that I believe Jesus to be, of love and compassion. And
Mhm.
um, I was also taught that deep sense of being a sinner and needing a savior. And it's a I it's a very common thing, and then I see how things have evolved to this point, just in the world and in Christianity, and especially evangelical Christianity. And
Mhm.
um, it's all the same thing, but it feels even more intense as far as the need for someone to save you. And that's part of the evolution we'll talk about, that I've been through. But um, I definitely was all in, and I think I fell in love with Jesus as a kid. But
Mm.
it was more of the beauty and the compassion and the love and the
Mhm.
unconditional love that I felt like he had, that I wanted to, that's the part that I held on to, of wanting to embody that and exemplify that and best I could. Um, as a kid, you just kind of you I was kind of a product of that indoctrination, and it's not all a bad thing. I think I learned a lot about caring for people, and about um, I did one of my first musicals that I did. I was in third grade, and I played the Good Samaritan. It was this musical called the children's musical called Sam, and I think that's kind of ironic in my life too, is that I played that role of the guy that stops to help the person that everybody else wants to walk by. And then as life happened, I became that person. So it's kind of an interesting journey I've had.
All right. So here you are in this very restrictive environment, technically, in terms of everything was dictated by these beliefs. how did you grow out of that? Because as I look behind you, I see the Buddha and what I know of your life.
Yes, I love the Buddha. I got this. I did a couple of retreats in Bali probably over the last 3 or 4 years. I've done a couple of retreats there and got this in Bali. I haven't had a chance to put it back on the frame yet, but I love the Buddha and the teachings of mindfulness and being present in the moment. And I think it has a lot. There's a book that I found somewhere on my journey called Jesus and Buddha, and it had the teachings of Jesus and the teachings of Buddha. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I look at it now as a gift, but I was a kid that was growing up discovering that I was also gay in this world of Christianity, and I think it was probably, in puberty in my teens began to kind of feel that I was different, but still being taught that is not an option. That's one of the big sins, and that you really got to get that God can heal you, God can change you. That phrase of pray the gay away, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this, it was a struggle, and I knew that I was feeling this way. And I also knew that was what I had taught to be completely unacceptable. And there was no one around me really that was saying, hey, it's not what you think it is,
Mm-hmm.
But I went all the way through high school, college. I went to Baylor University, another good old Baptist school in Waco, Texas. And I was still struggling, but I was still believing that if I just tried hard enough, that God could change me. That there was, that I dated women. I was engaged on my senior year of college, trying to change myself to be acceptable, to be straight in a world that, that was the option.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was on that path and trying to change myself and thinking that God could change me. And luckily I graduated a year before my fiance was still in school, and I moved to Dallas, and I met some friends that were like, you're gay. You just really need to think about this, because you can't, it's not just you and her, it's like your families, and it's just, you really think about it before you go into this marriage. And so I feel very blessed that I ran into people that kind of talked some sense into me and helped me to begin to discover that, okay, maybe this is just the way I am, and maybe God can still love me. It was before I found New Thought to realize that the God that I was wanting to love me is really like the presence that is living me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother thing about loving yourself, and as the spirit that is that you're embodying in this world. But so I in my own way, without having come out yet, I broke off the engagement, and then just began to kind of explore my life in Dallas as someone who was not bound for hell and an abomination, but was, maybe how I really felt about. That's when my relationship with Jesus as a kid was really about, I think as a gay man too, oddly, it was like Jesus was kind of, I wanted to emulate, but then also, oh wow, he'd be a great role model. And I probably had a crush on him a little bit, as odd as that might seem, wanting to be like that, but then also pulling in the idea that, I am different than most people that I grew up with. So That was really the main shift that I had to come out. And it was an interesting time, because I was at that point, I was an upcoming contemporary Christian artist. I was signed to a publishing deal. I was next in line to do an album, that would have launched my career more in that world. And looking back, I'm very grateful that everything happened when it did, because
Mhm.
it's been more entrenched and more a deeper hole to kind of crawl out of at the time. And I saw people, that did that. And it was very difficult. I lost a lot of friends. I was kind of outed first. Some Christian friends that I'd been writing songs with decided it was, they kind of found out a couple of things about a guy that I had been seeing, and it was a friend of theirs, and went to my Christian friends and were like, trying to, in their mind, I think when people do that in that world, they think they're doing it for your benefit, to try to save
Mhm.
you again. And so, yeah, it was an interesting time, because when I finally came out and kind of people began to know, that was my world. That's everybody that I knew was Baptist, and all the music, and not necessarily Baptist, but in the Christian music world. And
Mhm.
so I kind of lost everything at that point, as far as my career, my friendships. My family didn't necessarily disown me, but they didn't know what to do with me or how to respond either. So I was kind of left with a lot to figure out.
Mhm.
And I had a friend who, all of a sudden, there was no place to play, no music. I didn't really have any value with the people that I had value with before.
Mhm.
And so I had a friend of mine. He said, there's a piano bar and they have an open mic night on Tuesday nights. You should just go play. And so it was a gay cabaret in Dallas. And I went on a Monday night, and I played the open mic. I didn't really know a lot. I knew James Taylor and Kenny I knew some pop songs. I wasn't completely uh, in the church, like without any kind of outside influence, but I didn't know a whole lot of music other than the music that I had written in, a lot of Christian music.
Mhm.
I went and played at the open mic, and the owner afterwards said, "Hey, we've got an opening on Tuesday night. Would you like to play?"
Oh
And
my goodness.
so that was kind of a seamless. I think that music saved me in that time. I was in a really bad place, but now I had an opportunity to continue playing music. And looking back, I think that that's one of the things that saved me in that time, because it was a dark time for me at that point, of just going through the loss, trying to rebuild and figure out what I was going to do, who I was going to be. If that, um, yeah, and then add on to that um, the spirituality aspect of knowing what I felt inside, but then trying to figure out if I was just fooling myself, if I was, um, yeah, there was a lot going on.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. But the fact that you had music in your life from such an early age, I mean, that, to my way of thinking, that was the spiritual energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I began to find is that when I would play the piano bar, um, I really felt like I had a ministry. When I was 9 years old, I felt I
Mhm.
went down front, like they have the altar call all the time, and
Mhm.
or do you? And I really felt called into some sort of ministry with my music as a kid. I remember at my Assembly of God church that my grandmother went to. The wife of the minister there came up to me one time. I was probably maybe 12 or 13. You have the gift of exhortation, and you're here to like build people up and lift them up with your music. And that stuck with me all the years. I was like, I really believed that she saw something in me like that. And and so as I'm playing the piano bars, I'm realizing that the ministry hasn't stopped. I wasn't singing Christian music. I wasn't singing about Jesus or God, but I was singing from my heart, and
Hmm.
I was working out my spirituality and my life and my vulnerability through my music in those moments. And I began to see that um, people were being ministered to in an interesting way, and I was kind of being ministered to as well by, being in a piano bar playing music that had nothing to do with um, church specifically, but was still very spiritual, and
Hmm.
has always been, to this day. But I began to see that that there was still a place that I could be um, in a place where I could use my gift and still lift people up and encourage them, just like Sister Gilder had told me that I would when I was a
Hmm.
kid. And that has stuck with me all these years. I'm in my 60s now, and uh, still believe that, that has been one of the through lines in my life, and music especially. I'm so grateful that that opportunity came at that time and I was in a dark place. It was not just all love and light and music. Um, but it seems like that kind of was my sanctuary um, to help me get through those moments where I just felt completely alone and um, kind of out of whack with what was going on personally in my life.
Hmm. I'll tell you, when I look at the lyrics for your song Unbound, it's like, oh yeah, oh yeah. Open your mind, unfold your heart, relax your senses, feel every part. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here.
Yeah, I wrote that for myself. I wrote that for me, and a lot of songs that I've written, I think it is as much for me as it is to, for anybody else. But that one specifically was another kind of dark time in my life, and um, I had gone through another season of loss, and I had found a book by David Data, I think is how you pronounce his last name, called Naked Buddhism, Buddha. Uh, and it inspired me because he was like, just, relax. And it was all about kind of being in the present moment and the awareness that uh, I didn't have to figure everything out at that moment, but I could, there's one card: unfold your heart, relax your senses. Um, it was a season for me to, one more time to kind of just relax into the reality of life, and maybe not evolving like I thought it would, or being who I thought I was going to be, as far as what, what the world thinks, or what I thought I was supposed to be in the world. Um, yeah. So I love that song.
As do I. Um, there's this one other part here that I want to go. Oh, let's see. Um, so take so take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound, unbound.
Yeah.
So talk about that aspect. Talk about how now that you have found this new way to be in the world, to be more authentically you. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I moved from Dallas. I met one of my partners, one of the a person that I was with for about 7 years. Um, and he was like, it was kind of in the midst of all this after, I had kind of gone through and just was still trying to find my way and trying to hold myself together. And he's like, we got to get out of Texas. We got to get out of get out of here. And he had a friend that lived in Venice Beach, California. And so we loaded up a U-Haul and we drove to California, to Venice Beach, and we found a little apartment. You would never find it now, but it was in the mid-90s, and it was right on the boardwalk. Front door was like a sliding glass door that opened up onto a little patio and the boardwalk and the Pacific Ocean. And we're there for 5 years. And that's when I really began to get enough space from where I was brought up to breathe a little and to, become unwind everything, become unbound, um, open myself to just uh, really just to breathe and to relax a little bit and realize that I had not completely messed up my life. and and just having that space, um, that's when I really began to kind of explore a little bit more in Buddhism. I was given a book called The Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh.
Mhm.
And I remember we didn't have a dishwasher in this little apartment we were in. So I had to, I washed the dishes when we would cook. And in that book, there's a part of the book that is just, he talks about, if you're going to wash the dish, just wash the dish. You don't have to do anything else but wash the dish.
Mhm.
That was a really pivotal time for me to realize I had had so much expectation put on me by by expectation of who I was going to be, and then also internalize that and put it on myself, and to get to a point in my life where instead of writing a hit song, or instead of recording an album that was going to chart or that was going to be signed to a label, um, to get to a point where it was enough just to wash a dish and to realize that all of life was kind of unfolding in the present moment, regardless of what I was doing. And to let go of the expectation that I had put on myself to be somebody, um, and really just put myself in a position of, maybe it's not so much becoming someone as remembering who I am. And in those simple moments of either washing a dish, or it was the mid 90s, so we did a lot of rollerblading. So there's that bike trail along that goes all the way from Venice Beach to Santa Monica and back. And I'd put on my headphones. We had Walkman then. We didn't have iPod. And I would just lose myself and go blade for the afternoon. And um, and then also, one of the cool things that happened then, we had a little business where we upholstered furniture, and for me to be able to like upholster a chair and have something concrete that I had created and that
Mhm.
I could actually see, instead of a song that might go out and people are moved by the song. And I love that to this day. But to have that ability to kind of create something with my hands and actually see it and be in those small, simple moments and have that accomplishment of it seems like a really simple thing, but I think that was another Buddhist principle that I really kind of uh, deepened into, is just the idea of the present moment, and it's enough. It's just enough. You don't have to change the world. It's enough to just show up, be in the moment, and wash the dish, and be. I began to be a little more peaceful in my life, and just uh, have a different sense of spirituality that was um, that was more about what was inside, um, rather than having to prove myself or be saved from something that really never existed in the first place. Now,
Mhm.
you know, um, and like you said, it's uh, not to denigrate or to say anything is bad. It's just that I had this is the partner that told me it's a gift of being gay. It's a gift that, and I look at it now, it was a gift that allowed me to pull myself out enough to get a different perspective.
Mhm.
Because had I been straight, I probably would have had kids, and I hope that I would have been able to, um, would have been kind of enlightened and awakened enough uh, to continue to see the truth of what spirit and the kingdom within, that was another thing that began to be more prevalent in my consciousness. Was I had always been taught that the kingdom of God was within, but to really take it literally and to realize
Mhm.
that the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, the divine mind, whatever you want to call it, really was and is inside, is a huge thing um, to figure out and to begin. It was a big thing to begin to embrace, that I didn't have to prove myself to anybody. I wasn't a failure. I wasn't an abomination. I was okay. I could just sit with it and begin to kind of rebuild from there, of just stripping all of the other stuff away and making it a lot simpler. And I hadn't, it had been a long time since I'd written a song when I moved to Venice Beach. And the first song that I wrote, I went to a songwriting workshop, and it was called Walk on Water. And it started out with that old hymn, Love Lifted Me, that I'd known since I was, 4 or 5 years old. Um, but it was the idea of, oh, wow, now I have that presence and that spirit within me, and I sing this song that says, now I can walk on water. And, it seemed blasphemous a little bit, but it's the truth. We all have that within, um, to metaphorically, walk on water.
Mhm. I love that you were so drawn to create. There's an author, Orson Scott Card, who wrote this series of books about a character called Alvin the Creator. And whenever things are going terribly wrong around him and the destructor would just create this chaos, he would make things, physically make things.
Wow.
And I love that idea. And I love the idea that we have within us all that we need to create, or to co-create, if you will. So here you are. You've started once again to really get back into your music. You've started to develop a new personality in your music. Where do we go from here?
I started singing country songwriter demos. I met a guy named Marty Regan. He lived in Santa Monica. I started writing my own music, but then he was working with a lot of songwriters in LA, that were writing country music. And of course, I'm from Texas, and so I kind of had that bit of a twang anyway. I don't think that you hear it, but you probably still hear it. And so I started singing. I started singing demos for him, and so that was kind of a resurgence of, oh wow, okay, so now I can kind of I can make part of my living doing this, and I can still, there's still somebody that sees value in what I do and what I have to offer, and I can help these people who are trying to get their songs heard. And so I sang demos for him for a while, and through him met an attorney in LA, and he said, you know what, I think you should go to Nashville. And I wasn't a country artist, and I play piano, so it was a hard sell, for and I to make that happen. But he believed in me, and he saw something, and so we took a trip to Nashville, and he was an attorney that's very connected with a lot of people in the music industry, and so I wound up taking my keyboard and going in and playing. I think I played for probably 8 or 9 of the presidents of all the labels at the time. It was like in 2000 in Nashville, and lug my keyboard in, and I'd play. And I had written some written some new songs, and because of the influence of the country demos that I had been playing, it kind of had a little bit of a country flavor. And like I said, but it was kind of a hard sell that I was not, it was kind of country pop more than country. And so I got a couple of nibbles from a couple of the people in Nashville, and their thing was, okay, well, just come back here and get in line. There's like a lot of people ahead of you, and I still was kind of pushing that envelope a little bit. And in the meantime, my relationship at the time ended. And so we were both trying to figure out, it was amicably, but it was, just kind of had run its course. And so I decided, okay, you know what, I think I'm going to make a go of it and go to Nashville and see what I can create, whether it's just as a songwriter, maybe as an artist, just kind of, I had an opportunity when I was in college. I was either going to go to Baylor or Belmont College in Nashville, and that would have been a completely different path for me if I had gone that route. But then, that would have created a whole nother issue in my life. But anyway, so I wound up moving to Nashville with nothing. Again, kind of like a start over time. I didn't have a lot of money. I found a little apartment. It wasn't even an apartment. It was a big house on Music Row that had a porch that was converted into a room that you could live on. So I lived on a porch on Music Row and started making my way through Nashville and writing songs and meeting people. And I was back in the Bible Belt though. And so it was at that time, and really in that industry too, being an out country artist is really not, even to this day, not a thing that really happens. And so especially, 25 years ago, it's not that at all. And I felt a little bit like I was kind of going back in the closet again, because I couldn't really be out and myself, because I was, trying to kind of navigate and figure out a way to make things happen. And looking back, I still, I think, okay, trying to be somebody, become something rather than just kind of show up as who I am. And so I spent 3 years in Nashville, and I made a little bit of inroads, but I also realized that I was kind of out of my element a little bit, as far as a place where I could really be myself and thrive as a human in that world. And so I lived there for a while. I got sick with meningitis, actually, and I was going to do a gig back in back in Dallas, and got back to Dallas and never made it back to Nashville, because I wound up in the hospital, and I was kind of on my back for a while, which is another, I think that was another time where I just had to kind of be stopped in my tracks and regroup. I had explored the principle, the Buddhism and being in the moment. I think that really helped me through that time, because I could just I had to just lay there and kind of regroup again. So I wound up back in Dallas, and had a dear friend that kind of packed up my stuff that was still in Nashville and brought it back to me. I've been very blessed with friends along the way. And so my dad had passed while I was right before I moved to Nashville. And so I wound up back at home another time in my life where I just kind of was, um, uh, just really didn't have much of anything. And I wound up back at my mom's. She lovingly brought me, it was kind of like, it felt a little bit like the prodigal to me, prodigal coming home, and mom was having her arms wide open. She still didn't really understand me. She loved me, and she showed me, um, she showed me that pure, unconditional love of, okay,
Mm.
you're back. I don't get you. I don't really know what's going on, but you can be here. And so it was then that I got back to Dallas and I started to rebuild. I started doing a little musical theater um, in Dallas. And it was at that time I I'll go back just for a second, because when I started playing at the piano bars, I met this guy named Michael Gott. This is back the first time that right after I came out, and I know that a lot of your viewers will know Michael Gott, and we both played the piano bars when I first came out and started playing the piano bars in the early '90s. And he was at the really nice piano bar, and I was kind of at the hole in the wall piano bar, but we knew each other that way. And so I came back into Dallas, and had we were acquaintances. We knew of each other. We always kind of were on a different track as far as we both were doing the same thing. So we were kind of like doing our own thing. But he called me and said, "I wonder if you would fill in for me at this church that I'm playing." And I immediately was like, no. All you gotta say is you're playing at a church, and I am not interested. And but he was persistent, and he kept. I think he knew my background. He knew me enough to know my spirituality and how my music, how that kind of went along with my music. And so he kept asking, and I think I needed to pay my electric bill or something at that week. He's like, "Would you fill in for me?" And I finally was like, "Okay, I'll go." And the church was Center for Spiritual Living in Dallas, and that's where he was the music director. And so I went to fill in for him, and um, he eventually moved to Reno, which is interesting because that's where I'm in Reno now. Uh,
Mhm.
but when he left, uh, I started playing more often on the piano, filling in as on the music team as a piano player, and that's really where I got introduced to Ernest Holmes and New Thought, and an entirely different perspective of um, really of embracing Jesus again, and the whole idea of Christ consciousness, um, and the kingdom within.
Mhm.
And so that's really where I began to kind of um, began to evolve more spiritually, and kind of strengthen a little bit more uh, from the time when I came back to Dallas.
Hmm. I love how um, the things that seem like, oh no, this can't possibly be good for me, turn out so beautifully.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, it's pretty amazing. I began playing there. I was doing a lot of musical theater, still writing songs I had written when I lived in Nashville. I was always writing. The thing is, what I find I've done in my life is I've kind of always written my way through what I was going through
Mhm.
musically. So I feel very grateful to have been given a gift of music to where I could express myself. When I came out and everything kind of fell apart in my life, I lost my voice as far as just my speaking voice and being able to express myself. It wasn't safe, and so I I think, my throat chakra probably shut down and I lost my voice as far as being able to express myself just in talking to someone.
Mm.
But I could always write it out and I could always work it out with my music and my songs. And I think that's what, whether I was playing in a piano bar or a church, what people connect with is um, not only the ability, but the willingness to be vulnerable enough to work it out, and then just to sing it and to share
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Um, and it seems as though people, a lot of people who are going through the same thing or have been through a lot of the same things, um, find comfort in someone else expressing it that way.
Mhm.
So I I've always worked my way through my music, and so when I wound up when I got back to Dallas and Center for Spiritual Living, it was a natural. It was just kind of a natural thing to continue that, and it was at that time that I met my partner of 18 years, Danny. Um, but I met him, and he had been in the late 80s. He had been in like SOM1 and SOM2, like studying to be a practitioner, and so he knew this world. And
That's Science of Mind 1 and 2, folks.
Science of Mind 1 and 2, yes, yes, or and that was way back in the back in the late 80s, I think. And so he was definitely, um, he knew about Ernest Holmes, and um, I remember we had met, and I was doing a lot of musical theater, so that's kind of the world that he knew me in. And then I mentioned that I was playing, I was filling in at this church, and he goes, "Well, what's this church that you're playing?" And I said, "Well, it's a guy named it's Center for Spiritual Living, but he was involved before it had become CSL. It was
Mhm.
science, and so he didn't really recognize the new branded name.
Mhm.
But I said something about I called Ernest Holmes Uncle Ernie at the time. And, I said, "This guy named Ernest Holmes. It's really cool." I mean, when I was on the music team, and we would play music, and then we'd go have coffee and bagels during the talk, and then come back and play at the end of the service. So I was kind of paying attention. I loved the community and the people and the music. Wasn't really I didn't really know that much about what was the talks and just the teaching. And so I said, "This guy named Ernest Holmes." And he goes, "Hold on a minute." And at this time, I didn't realize that he had been involved with religious science. And so he left the room, and he came back and handed me this thing called You.
Mm.
And he said, "Read this book. Your music is like right along the lines and the teaching. And there's a lot of opportunity, but read this book and stay for the talk and listen next time you're playing." And I opened the book, and it immediately resonated. It was like finding home again spiritually.
Mhm.
Um, it just it resonated so deeply with me. And so I started um, staying for the talk. I started exploring. I started reading um, a lot of different books, by New Thought authors, and especially Ernest Holmes. Um, and realized that, oh wow, okay, I have kind of found my way back. It was kind of interesting that now here had been this full circle of, here I am back in Dallas singing spiritual music in a different context, but just finding my way back, and then with a completely different perspective of what I had been brought up with. So
Mhm. So transformation after transformation after transformation.
yeah, like it's a continuing theme in my life. I'm grateful. um yeah, I started playing there and writing more songs. I met a dear friend, Robin Hackett, and she began to, we started writing some songs together. We wrote a song called Spirit's Prayer, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And so I began to play. And so I was kind of finding community again and kind of trusting other people, trusting myself, connecting more with the fact that that the kingdom was within, and that it was all connected. I didn't, I could take the best things about Jesus and what he actually taught of the kingdom being within, and not you have to accept me as your savior in order to be saved,
Mhm.
And so I played there, and Danny and I started. He said, there's a place out in California. It's called a Silomar, and they have these big events there, and your music would be so great there. Let's just start visioning. And he would show me photos of Merrill Hall and of the grounds of a Silomar. He said, let's just start looking. And there's such a world of music and opportunity. And so maybe the next year, some of the people, Reverend Petra and Robin, had went to a Silomar, and I still didn't know much about it. But I was playing on the music team at CSL in Dallas, and they came back and had kind of talked me up with the music team that was performing, Lisa Ferraro and Etika Luckett, Karen Drucker, all the superstars of New Thought music were there. And so I just was continuing to do musical theater, play at CSL, play at Unity, just kind of opening myself back up to that world. And Danny and I kept, kind of visioning and just kind of talking about what the possibilities were. And next thing I know, I'm at home and I get this phone call from Lisa Ferraro. I didn't know her. And she calls and she says, you know what? I never hire anybody that I haven't worked with or that I don't know, but you come so highly recommended from from the team in Dallas. Would you be interested in coming and being on the music team at a Silomar? You're not going to believe this. I was like completely floored. And Danny's like, see, I told you, believe it and you'll see it. So I was just completely blown away. So that opportunity came up, and we went to a Silomar that next, August, whenever that gathering was. And I had an opportunity to play. Unbound was the one song that I played there. And it just resonated with me, and it resonated with a lot of people. And I met a lot of people, and I met a guy named Doug LeBeau. He was the music director for CSL events for a long time. And we started talking, and we wrote a song together and started talking about maybe doing some recording. And so one thing led to another, and Danny was ready. He was already working in Phoenix at the time. And so he was ready to kind of get back out of Dallas again. It was kind of like another full circle of, I had left, with Carrie, I had left, you got to get out of Dallas. And then with Danny, it was just like, there's so much, there's a whole world, on the West Coast, and opportunity, and why don't we just go explore? And so through that connection at CSL Dallas, and then the opportunity to go play at a Silomar, it just opened up a lot of opportunity. And came back out west and started playing at different centers and churches, and kind of floored that it all was kind of full circle, that I began to play retreats and conventions and camp, the teen camp, and all the things that I had done early in my life through the perspective of Christianity. But the thread was that the spirituality never changed. It was never, it still is for me. It is a kind of a love affair with the idea of Jesus offering unconditional love, compassion, empathy, all of the good things. And I look now at at the contrast between what I was raised with and what I have kind of evolved into. And not that I'm any, it's not patting myself on the back as much as it is just a solemn kind of remembrance of who I have always been and who we all are. I think it's life is not necessarily what becoming something, or you have to become anything other than who you are, and remembering at your essence that you are the expression of spirit in the world. And then now, just to take responsibility for that in my life and be responsible for, okay, if I really believe that, if I really believe that the kingdom of God is within me and that I have everything I need, and I have an opportunity, if I will take it, to center into that and lean into that reality, it can change how I show up in the world, whether I'm playing music or whether I'm just showing up to kind of be a presence of peace and love among the people that I run into.
Beautiful, beautiful. Unfortunately, we can't stay on for another hour. As much as I would love to
talk too much.
But I do want to bring this up.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes.
I can really quickly talk about, this is my new album. It's called G-Flow and the Tribe. My nickname in college was G-Flow, and that guy kind of had to go away and die a long time ago. But I have, in titling this G-Flow and the Tribe, I'm reclaiming that part of me, that innocence and that belief that I could do anything. So this is I was inspired to do this is a chant album, and they're all chants. It's an opportunity. I believe that there is such power in affirmations, and in singing the affirmations makes them even more powerful for me. And so even if it doesn't feel like the external world is necessarily reflecting the affirmations that we're singing, I think that the power is in singing them anyway and showing up and believing that it is done unto you as you believe. And if you believe the affirmations, even though it doesn't seem like they may be showing up in your life, to trust that if you continue to stay grounded and connected to them, it makes a difference in how you show up in the world. So this is just an invitation for people to sing along with me on this album. And yeah, thank you for that. It's G-Flow and the Tribe.
Excellent, excellent. And you'll be appearing next at Unity of Houston on November 9th.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm looking forward to that. Michael Gott, another full circle moment. He's the senior minister there. I did a cruise with him a few months ago. And so this is my first time to be able to go and join him at Unity Houston. So I'll be back with Michael, who is the guy who basically kind of introduced me and pulled me in by keeping inviting me to fill in for him at CSL Dallas. So it's his fault.
Oh, well, Gary, I can't thank you enough. It's just been a wonderful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for letting me share.
All right. So, folks, this show is your show. All right. Anything that you have in your life that has limited you, and you've seen your way through that. You've been able to get to a point of being able to transform and triumph, regardless of whether you think it's huge or you think it's small. It's all beautiful. It's all important. So please, by all means, tell people about this show. You want to be on the show? Let me know, because we'd love to have you. All right, Gary.
Thank you,
I'll
Zoe.
see you. Be well.
Love you. Thanks a lot.